Hello and welcome to Straight Onto Disney, a Disney deep dive and analysis podcast, where each week I, your host Jonathan, takes a deep dive into the history of each Disney film and the legacy that they left behind. I'd like to remind you that you can follow me on Instagram at Straight Onto Disney Pod, and you can email me your thoughts at straightontodisneypod@gmail.com. So hello and welcome to this week's Straight Into Disney Pod, where we're finally going to be diving back into the films after the last few weeks of having guests on, which I've loved having on, and the trailer reactions and analysis and all the news that's been coming out. But this week's episode is finally Melody time. It's time for Melody time. But there is a small bit of mousekeeping that we need to run through beforehand. In the last 10-15 minutes or so, the trailer for the live action Moana has been released, and to say the least, it looks stunning visually. I'm intrigued that we're not doing it beat for beat of the original film, and I'm interested in that there are some elements of the story that they've revitalized and restructured, which I found interesting from trailer at first glance. Maybe that's just my interpretation of it, and it will be more in vein to the original film that was released 10 years ago. Do I agree that we necessarily needed a live action Moana now? No. But all in all, it looks beautifully and stunningly visual. Also, this last week, we had Josh D'Amaro sworn in as the new CEO of Disney, and Bob Iger stepping down, and he did a moving and beautiful speech at the Disney annual holders event where we got the announcements of Lilo and Stitch 2 releasing May 26, 2028, and The Incredibles 3 releasing June 16th, 2028, which we were expecting. We also got the announcement of the Disney Believe as the next ship in the Disney Cruise Line fleet. So there was some big announcements there. There's also an image circulating online with a lot of Disney projects, live actions and animated films from Pixar, Disney, and Pixar, Disney Animation, and then Disney live action. I don't know how real the image is because there's a lot of stuff on there that are confirmed. There's a lot of stuff that have been heavily rumored to be in development, and that's why I'm a bit like, I'm not 100% sure how accurate that is. There's been a lot of news online saying that it's real. Some people are saying it's AI, but I'm not 100% sure because it could have been an image leaked out of the investors. So I'm not 100% sure. So I'm not going to really discuss it. I might discuss it in the future if it becomes true. But as much as I'd love to talk and discuss rumors and stuff, it just doesn't feel necessarily because we don't know how true and how real it is. We also have Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin will reopen on April 8th, being fully refurbished with the new animatronics, the new scoring system, and it looks visually and it looks a lot brighter and really fixing some of the bug issues I think it's hard. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't ridden it in a long time. And we also have the Big Thunder Mountain will reopen in early May of this year. So two big attractions in Magic Kingdom will be finally reopening. There's been a few little small things like framing work's gone up for Piston Peaks. There's been groundwork in Monstropolis Land, which is now expected to open late 2027, early 2028, which is really awesome to hear. So there's not too much in terms of big news when it comes to that. There's not much when it comes to big news in that stuff. Melody Time, which had a working title of Sing About Something, was directed by Jack Kinney, Hamilton Lusk, Wilfred Jackson, and Clyde Gubinimi. It was produced by Walt Disney. The film was written by Winston Hibler, Harry Reeves, Ken Anderson, Erdman Penner, Homer Brightman, Ted Sears, Joe Rinaldi, and Joe Rinaldi, William Cattell, Jensen Marsh, and Art Scott, as well as Bob Moore and John Welbridge. Music was by Oliver Wallace, Paul Smith, Elliot Daniel, and Ken Darby. The film was edited by Donald Halliday and Thomas Scott. Studios was Walt Disney Productions, distributed by RKO Radio Pictures. The film was released May 27th, 1948, with a running time of 77 minutes, and obviously was released in English. Melody Time is an animated anthology film in the Disney animated canon. It was released, as I said, May 27th, 1948, and was released in theatres by RKO Radio Pictures. The film is made up of several sequences set to popular music and folk music. The film is like Make Mine Music before it. The contemporary version of Fantasia, which was an ambitious film that proved to be a financial and commercial disappointment upon its original theatrical release. Melody Time, while not meeting the artistic accomplishments of Fantasia, was a mildly successful film in its own right. It is the fifth package film following Salidas Amigas, The Three Cambarellos, Make My Music, and Fun and Fancy 3. In late 1947, Disney acquired... No, it didn't. In 1947, Disney announced the releasing of regrouping of various cartoons at the studio under two titles, thus being Melody Time and The Fabulous Characters, to be released in August 1948 and 1949 respectively. Melody Time ended up being released a few months earlier than planned in May. Melody Time is considered to be the last anthology feature film made by the Walt Disney Animation Studio. The next film to be released would be The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which featured two stories. The feature films were little-known short film compilations that Disney had created during World War II. They financially and artistically lightweight productions that were designed to bring in profit for the company during the World Wars. This would then allow the studio to return to the feature-length fairy tale films that they had been making prior to the Second World War, including Cinderella, which would also be how they would able to be financially able to make Cinderella because of these package films. Whilst the shorts contrast in length, and whilst the shorts contrast in length, whilst the short contrast in length and artistic style, what is commonly found is that each of these segments are set to a different form of contemporary and folk music. This sets it apart from that of Fantasia, which segments were set to contemporary music, and also Fun and Fancy 3, where they were set to the tales of Bongo and Jack and the Beanstalk. What this then allowed Walt Disney to do was allow his animators and colour magicians to have free rein on how they would navigate and construct this story. The entire film was produced and constructed in Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California. It was made with 35mm film. It was made with 35mm film negatives, though the right. It was made with 35mm film negative, though not more. It's true. It was made with 35mm film negative, or the spherical cinematography process in Technicolor and of 1.371. Right, right. The film was made with 35mm film negative through the spherical cinematography, and Technicolor was at a ratio of 1.37.1. Melody Time was the last film to include the Melody Time was the last film that the Anderson sisters were a part of under the Disney production. They would sing through the 10-minute segment Little Toot. Oh my god, Andre's sisters, not Anderson sisters. Because I'm thinking Sanderson sisters. Oh, this is going to be fun to edit down. Sorry, editing me. Melody Time was the last film to feature the Andrews sisters in a Walt Disney production. They would sing throughout the 10-minute segment known as Little Toot. The Andrews sisters from Mexico said it was quite an experience. On the wall at the studio, they had the whole story in picture form. Two songwriters played the score, and Walt Disney explained to us it was a new thing for Disney. We sang the narrative. It was very exciting to work with Disney. He was such a gentleman. The two children who hear the story of Pace's Bill, Bobby Driscoll and Laura Bob. The two children who hear the story of Percy's Bill, Bobby Driscoll and Luana Pigeon, also appeared together in Song of the South and So Dear to My Heart. Melody Time was the last film to include Donald Duck until the 19... Melody Time was the last film to feature Donald Duck until the 1958 Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Film reception. The film was originally released in the United States, Brazil and Argentina in 1948, and in 1950 in Mexico. From April 1949 UK to the 15th of September 1954 in Denmark. The film was released across Europe. The film was known in a variety of names, including... I'm not even going to attempt that because it looks to be German or Bippen MM. No, that's not even German, that's Bulgaria. Melody Cocktail in France, Musky, Tanz and Riffamedis in Germany, and Slavivekio in Finland. Disney would later release its package film entitled Musicland, a 9-segment film which recycled sequences from both My Music and Melody Time, 5 selections from the Melody Time, while another was the Tale of the Two for the Record, which consisted of 2 segments produced under Benny Goodman's direction. Melody Time was unusual in that until 1998, 50 years after its release, it remained one of the handful of Disney animations yet to be released on video cassette. Some of the segments have been re-released as features, and Once Upon a Winter Time has been included on other Disney video cartoon compilations. At the time of the release of the film received genuinely unfavorable reviews. However, Disney Discourse, producing the Magic Kingdom noted that in an article in the Time magazine around the time, celebrated the global scope of the Disney product, and a 1948 review for the News Sentinel said the charm and skill that one had to expect from Disney is a delightful entertainment for all children. A 1950 review of the film for the Los Angeles Times said the acts Johnny Appleseed and Pecos Bill, which the new variety show from Walt Disney, gave special attention to our our human sagas, and as a result, more endearing than the rest of the segments. The Andrews Sisters, a biography and career record, notes that the public liked the film and it was a box office success. I'm going to skip because there's a lot on this that you can have a deep dive into. I'm just saying this for editing purposes because I think we're getting closer to the film now. Yeah, there's not really too much here. Have I hit the film yet? Sorry, I'm just. Where's the film? Right, here we go. The film. So yeah, there's not really too much to dive in. There's not really too much to dive into with production notes when it comes to Melody Time. As once again, with the rest of these package films, as we finally get to the last few, Sind, Ichabod, and Mr. Toad, you do find that a lot of the production notes are kind of similar with World War II. So there's not too much, and there's a lot of reviews that you can read about on the Disney Wiki. if you want to go and do a deep dive yourself. The particular film has 7 segments. The first being Once Upon a Winterland, which features Francis Langford singing the title song about 2 romantic young lovers. In December, the boy shows offer his girl, and near tragedy and timely rescue ensue. The short was also featured on the compilation video A Walt Disney Christmas and was shown on TV as part of the Walt Disney's Disneyland episode Magic and Music in 1958. The edition of Disney Time shown on BBC One on Boxing Day 1975. The Wonderful World of Disney special, A Disney Christmas Gift in December 1982, and A Disney Channel Christmas in December 1983. A clip from it was shown in From Disney with Love that February. The next segment is Bumble Boogie, which is a surrealist nightmare for a solitary bee living in the Bumble Boogie is a surrealistic Bumble Boogie is a surrealist nightmare for a solitary bee trying to escape from a visual and musically frenzy. The music is a courtesy of Freddie Martin's. The music is courtesy of Freddie Martin and his orchestra, with Jack Finnell playing the piano, and is a swing jazz variation of Rimsky-Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee, which was one of the many pieces considered to be included on Fantasia. The Legend of Johnny Appleseed is a retelling of the story of John Chapman, who spent most of his life roaming America and planting apple trees, thus earning him his famous nickname, Denny Day Denny Day narrates and provides all the voices. Little Toot is based on the poem by Hardy Grammatiki, in which the titled protagonist, a small tugboat, wants to be just like his father, but can't seem to stay out of trouble. The Andrews sisters provide the vocals. Out of all of these musical segments, this one is the most famous, inspired by Robert D. Cardona, producer of the first two seasons of Thomas and Friends, and David Mitton, director of Thomas and Friends from season 1 to 7, to create the British children's television program Tugs, a series about the adventures of two anthropomorphic tugboats from the Star Fleet, the Z-Stacks, who compete against each other for the best job contracts in the big city port during the 1920s. Trees is a retelling of the famous Alfred Joyce Kilmer poem by Fred Waring and the Pennsylvanians, with a lyrical setting to be seen through the seasons. Blame It on the Samba has Donald Duck and Jose Carioca meeting with the Arakan bird, and introduce them to the pleasures of the samba. The Dinning sisters provide the vocals, while organist Ethel Smith plays the organ. Pecker's Bill, as told by Roy Rogers and the Sons of the Pioneers, is the film's final reciting the tale of the famous hero from Texas, the greatest cowboy that ever lived, his horse Widowmaker, and how he was brought back down to earth by a woman named Bluefoot Sue. This retelling of the story is a courtesy of Roy Rogers, Bob Nolan, and the Sons of the Pioneers to Bobby Driscoll and Luann Putton. This segment was later added on to the film's NTSC video release, but not the PAL release, to remove all scenes of Bill smoking a cigarette. The entire scene with Bill rolling the smoke and lighting it with a lightning bolt was cut, and all other shots of the offending cigarette hanging from the lips were digitally removed. Likewise, the segment relating how he fought a native tribal war band was also edited out of the sing-along version, as it was perceived to be promoting racist stereotypes, which one can understand why they would do such a thing, especially in the modern age and where we are now in society. So it's a really interesting and unique thing to see that all these 7 pieces of storytelling and music were really used to narratively use, and they were narratively constructed to tell the story with the use of music, which Disney is known for and has continued to do so across the decades. So it's a really unique and interesting thing that I wonder if Disney might want to start thinking about redoing, or maybe finding new ways to do so in the modern age, in allowing music to tell the story rather than ever having to utter words, which ultimately could lead to some really unique and interesting storylines and storytelling. The legacy, as we've found with these package films, there's not too much legacy when it comes to these films and the package films themselves, but like most of the shorts, most of the segments included in Melody Time have been released as their own separate shorts, except for Trees and Bumble Boogie, which were released as a double feature as contrasts of rhythm. The standalone short versions of Once Upon a Winterland and Little Toot open with a musical variation of the Melody Time theme. So they're still tied to the film, but released separately. The film's copyright was renewed on May 9th, 1978. On May 9th, 1975. The previews from the VHS are the same previews as the ones featured on the 1999 VHS releases of Dumbo, Alice in Wonderland, The Sword and the Stone, Robin Hood, Mary Poppins, and Pete's Dragon. The music of Little Toot can be heard One second. The music of Little Toot can be heard at Mickey's Toontown in Disneyland and Tokyo Disneyland Sea. So that's where we're gonna wrap this episode up, because as we found with these shorter films, there's not really too much to dive into in development of characters, how characters were designed, and the way they're used in films. And next week, when we get to Ichabod and Mr. Toad, there's going to be a lot more to delve into and develop. So that's going to be a really interesting and fun one, because we're also going to be dealing with Sleepy Hollow. So there's going to be a lot of park stuff when it comes to the Headless Horse. So really, we're finally getting back on track with the Disney films. I know I've been saying for weeks I will do Melody Time. I just haven't had a chance to, but I hope you understand. We've had some really fun guests on. I've got hope that we'll have some really fun guests back on soon. And no, I have not forgotten the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer finally dropped this week. I know Tom is incredibly excited that it's finally here. We're going to be hopefully doing a deep dive with some fun special guests, but the reason why I haven't done this week is because Tom is in Disneyland Paris. So he's having a wonderful time with him and Lauren in Disneyland Paris. So hopefully they're having an incredible time. So Spider-Man trailer, debrief, and reaction, debrief, and review will be coming soon at some point. It'll be swinging at some point soon. I just don't know when yet, because I have plans to have some more people on to chat about the Spider-Man trailer. So it's going to be an interesting time in the next 2 weeks. Moana 2, the Moana live action, I get, you're probably like, why are you not doing a deep dive in that? I probably will do at some point. It's literally only just dropped today. So maybe next week's bonus episode we'll dive into the Moana trailer. I keep saying Moana 2, and I know it's not Moana 2, but it's in my zeitgeist of going, Moana 2, no, it's the Moana live action, which is what's confusing me. But hopefully I'll remember it's Moana live action. There's some really fun things coming up. There's been a clip out from Toy Story 5 that looked incredible. So if you haven't checked that out, go and give that a watch. Shout outs. Of course, a lot of people and fun friends of mine in the Disney community have been going to the have been going to Disneyland Paris the last few weeks, because the previews for World of Frozen are now open and Disney Adventureland. So if you want to go and find out more about what's going on in Disney Adventureland, you can go and have a look on all of their socials. They're always about on Disdebate, which you can follow on Instagram at Disdebate, and you can find them on YouTube at Disdebate. I'm not sure when I'm back on yet, but soon, hopefully, because it's a really fun time. You can always follow Tom on Instagram at Tomo2 Disney on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And you can, so yeah, that's where I'm going to wrap this episode up. You can follow me on Instagram at StraightOnToDisneyPod, and you can email me at StraightOnToDisneyPod@gmail.com. Thank you all for listening, and bye.